Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a new edition of Droppin Knowledge with Noah. New year, new me, no mustache, but hopefully lots of good knowledge for you guys to absorb as part of what's going on in the auto industry. And this episode is really exciting. It's something I've been doing for the last few years, and it's covering the annual Cox Automotive Car Buyer Journey Study. So every year, what Cox Automotive does is we basically survey several thousand people who bought a car in the past year and kind of figure out how is the overall process, how much time did it take, what tools did you use, and all sorts of other information from these people who actually went out and bought a car, so we can deliver that to you, the dealership, to really get an understanding of how you can adjust your business to meet the needs of today's modern shopper. So let's jump right in and I'll kind of show you what we're talking about here. So in 2025, we hit 2,344 total buyers, 1,500 new buyers, and 770 used buyers. So it's a pretty solid data set. It gave us a lot of good information to pull from. So let's jump right into it. And the first thing we're going to do is kind of talk about some of these market conditions that are affecting what's going on with our consumers out there. So number one, the income share. Vehicle buyers are wealthier today. So people who are making over $150,000 make up 42% of the buying public. And that's up from 29% back in 2020. And if we look at folks who are making less than 100 grand per year, that was at 50% back in 2020. Now it's down to 37. So what we're seeing is folks who are under $100,000, they're running into a lot of affordability challenges, right? Those folks who are making over $150,000, they've got some investments. The S&P 500 is helping them out. The Dow Jones Industrials up 28% since 2024. So they're kind of sitting pretty, and they've got some money to spend, and they can afford these more expensive vehicles that are out there. And we can actually see that the majority of consumers are saying that the vehicle ownership is still too costly, right? 62% agree that owning or leasing a vehicle is becoming too expensive. Now, I don't have the exact stat, but I think it was in 2025, the average price of a new car sold was over $50,000. Now, we're not talking about, Mercedes E-classes here with these new vehicles. We're looking at, your 3-row family SUVs that are costing over 50 grand. Your trucks, especially. Cars are more expensive than ever, and we can see that right here. Vehicle prices, 70% of shoppers saying that they're too expensive, and the fuel costs out there is too expensive, 60%, but it's still down. It was actually down a little bit versus what we saw last year. So people are feeling the pinch, especially folks who are making less than 150 grand a year. They're running into a lot of challenges when it comes to affordability. Now, the other thing that we saw, this is very unique to 2025, was tariffs, right? And it led 1 in 3 shoppers to buy a new vehicle sooner. They said, hey, you know what? This is the cheapest this vehicle is ever going to be. So let's go ahead and purchase that vehicle. It really kind of points to these kind of big governmental decisions and their effect on consumer behavior. So as we kind of roll through 2026, there's a lot of things going on, and we're going to see those consumer behaviors adjust based on that, right? We're looking at maybe oil prices going up dramatically. That could mean people are going to transition more to, those fuel-efficient vehicles, those hybrids, and maybe even EVs, which we've counted out the last couple of years because they haven't been very popular. Well, if oil's over $200 a gallon or a barrel, that could suddenly change. So we got to kind of keep an eye on what's going on at the global level to, inform our strategies moving forward. But let's move on and talk about satisfaction, right? I think the last 3 or 4 years, well, actually, definitely the last 3, satisfaction has hit all-time highs. So if we look at this chart now, it's a lot of data points, but overall, if we look back at 2016, for new buyers, we're at 66% satisfaction. Used, 58%. The average at 60%. Fast forward, 9 years to 2025, 76% for new, 69% for used, and 71%. So overall, we've seen a big increase. Now, we saw some dips and some, peaks and valleys. So back in 2020, the buying process, people were super happy with it. And then oh, chip shortage, no inventory. People are paying, out the ear for vehicles. So they're not exactly happy. And then now we're seeing an increase in that satisfaction. But our highly satisfied customers, right? They're more dealer loyal. They're more often contacted by a dealership with a good deal in advance. Now, this is where your CRM comes into play. You want to have your CRM notify you when you've got a shopper in market so you can reach out to them before they reach out to you and beat out your competition, especially when you've got a good offer for them. Now, they're also less often, they had to travel further than normal to find a vehicle. They considered fewer vehicles, so they knew exactly what they wanted. And the experience for them was more efficient. They spent almost 2 fewer hours shopping online and visiting fewer websites. So they knew what they wanted. They had a good experience at the dealership that they were working with because their processes were dialed in, so they're in and out and they had their new car. Now, if we look at the dealership satisfaction, it's also at an all-time high for those new buyers, and it has improved for used buyers. So used buyers peaked back in 2020 at 76%. We're at 75%, so still pretty darn good. But if we look at that trend overall, huge improvements as far as the dealership experience. So the average back in 2016 was 67%. Now we're up to 76%. So about a 9% increase overall. But look at those new buyers. 69% back in 2016, 81% satisfied with the dealership experience. And if we look at used, another big increase, 66% all the way up to 75%. So big improvements. And it comes back down to the experience at the dealership. They were reaching out before the shopper did, right? They knew exactly what that shopper was interested in. They were able to reach out to them before the other competitors were out there. They provided a better in-store experience. The shopper had to deal with less employees. Check this out. More often dealt with only 1 to 2 dealership employees. And more efficient. They spent almost 30 fewer minutes and less idle time at the dealership. So this tells me, we're looking at 2016 to 2025 was processes for those highly satisfied shoppers were better, right? So they were able to find their car, deal with less people, have a more streamlined experience in the store, and the store knew more about them. And that comes down to tracking their behavior across their online activities, right? So you know where they are, what they're interested in, so you can personalize that experience for them and provide a good dealership experience, whether it's online, in-store, or in between. Okay, now let's talk about better than before. So they bought a car and then, they had a certain experience and now they bought a car in 2025. Was it better, about the same, or worse? So if we look at that, right, the folks who rated that their overall experience was better was 42% across new and used, right? Pretty darn good. 52% said it was about the same, and only 6% said it was worse, which is in an all-time low versus 2021. Pretty good. Now, what we see, those comments, and it comes back to what I was saying before. This guy is saying it was seamless from the online to the dealership. I was able to complete most of it online, including getting quickly approved. The dealership was able to confirm the loan approval, completed the paperwork quickly, and the trade-in was what I wanted. And finally, I was able to complete most of the steps online and save a lot of time in the process. Okay, so you know how we've been talking about digital retailing for the last 10 years, right? We're trying to get everybody into that digital retailing workflow. Well, this is adding up, right? The more you can get your customers into your digital retailing workflow, the happier they're going to be, the better experience they're going to have. So what we're seeing our top performing dealers do is not just have a DR tool on their website and hope for the best. They're getting everybody into digital retailing. So yes, have the DR tool on your website. But if they give you a call, what are you going to do? You want to send them a link to a digital deal and get them into that workflow. If they walk into the store and point at a car, rather than their first pencil being on a piece of paper with some Sharpie marker, instead pull up a deal inside your digital retailing tool and have that true omni-channel tool that guides them through the experience and makes it easier for them to buy the car. And here's the thing, it makes it easier for your people to do their job as well. And we're going to dive into that a little bit further as we get down into this study some more. All right, what we also saw, we were talking about affordability being an issue. People reporting that cars are more expensive than ever. They're harder to afford. That's changing their behavior. So what we saw was an increase in cross-shopping between new and used vehicles. So what we saw here was the number of people who knew exactly what car they wanted at the start of shopping went down in 2025. So less people were thinking, hey, you know what? I'm really locked in on this new vehicle. And that was actually down from 32% back in 2020. But if we look at people who consider both new and used, right? In 2025, an all-time high, 43% for new folks who ended up buying new, 74% for used buyers. So that is increasing. So if you are just focusing on new, you're ignoring used, which I would hope that nobody is doing, but you got to make sure that you have that ability to maybe do a help that person cross shop between those vehicles, right? Maybe your used inventory in your market is especially pricey and you can get them into a new vehicle for a better rate. You want to be able to train your folks to swap back and forth between those types of inventory to improve their overall experience and turn them into loyal, lifelong customers who want to keep buying cars from you. All right, here's the big one. AI is coming. AI is here. We know that. When AI is not coming, it's here. And the tech is showing promise in helping further improve vehicle buying. Now, this is actually really interesting. I think there's a lot of fear about shoppers using AI and messing things up for dealerships, right? It's difficult because you're like, oh man, this guy's got a supercomputer in his pocket. He can point his camera at my deal sheet and pick it apart and start negotiating even harder. But what we found was that mostly digital AI users enjoy a more satisfying experience. So if we look at this here, use of AI technology made my vehicle shopping experience awesome. This was the first time I used artificial intelligence in getting a car, and it made it much easier and much less work for me. So I think what this comes down to is people are going into ChatGPT. They're using it to help them research what type of vehicle they're interested in and also guide them through the buying process. And what they're doing is they're coaching those shoppers to use more digital tools to have their stuff ready to go, right? Hey, unlock my credit, fill out my credit application in advance, schedule a test drive, etc., and really kind of set themselves up for success in the dealership, what actually makes it easier for your dealership staff to provide a great experience for that shopper. So what we're seeing is, I think, more people are using ChatGPT to study, deal sheets, etc. But what's happening more often here is people are using these tools to coach them on getting through that process more seamlessly. And it's providing benefits for everybody, right? Now, the other thing too is this also tells us that, hey, dealerships should be using these tools to help things out on their end as well. So coaching their staff, providing responses to shoppers, giving more insight into the shoppers so they can personalize the experience for them. Now, the other thing that we saw too is the total time buying a car has decreased in 2025. So people are spending less time researching and shopping online, especially for new, 5 hours and 39 minutes. That's driven by that AI usage, right? Hey, what's the best car with 3 rows that has fuel efficient and can fit my dog, right? They're using these tools to narrow down those vehicles and get to a decision more quickly. And we're seeing that kind of across the board, new, used, and for everybody right here. So we're also seeing, those top performing dealerships, they are hyper-focused on the process and getting people through the dealership more quickly. Now, I'd still say that the time spent in the dealership is still a bit high, right? On average, we're looking at 2 hours and 55 minutes. So that means we can still improve that in-store experience. So, hey, get that person to fill out all their stuff online. When they get them in the store, how do we pick it up seamlessly from where they left off and guide them through that process? That's where I think we're seeing some challenges. Now, what we also found, right, one of the key findings here is AI technology is going to shape the way consumers shop, right? It is shaping everything. Everybody's using it more and more, and it's doing more and more, and we're still at the tip of the iceberg of what this stuff can do. So what we saw here, 83% of consumers say the rise of technology like AI is going to impact the way they purchase vehicles over the next 10 years. Duh. It's going to impact the way they do everything, right? Now, the number one use case was researching vehicles. Like I said before, they're spending less time having to figure out which vehicle's right for them because AI is just giving them the answer and they're trusting it, right? Now, on the dealership side, I'm going to switch things over a little bit here. 63% of dealers said that investing in AI now is critical for long-term business success. So there's still a gap there. We're still seeing about 37% of dealers saying, yeah, you know what? AI is kind of a fad, and you know what? I'm not even thinking about it. And guess what? That 37% is going to get eaten up by that 63%. AI is here. It's here to stay. It's only getting better. And those early adopters, the people who are integrating it into their systems and their processes in a smart way, are going to be the ones that succeed. Now, you got to think of it. It's still a tool. And it's not something you're just like, oh, I just have AI and it just does its thing. You have to implement it mindfully. You have to have a plan for it. You have to have a good partner that can implement it and execute with it and make sure that it's not kind of going off the rails. It's not a set it and forget it yet. You still have to have some guidance for the tool to really make sure you're getting the most use out of it. So definitely something to think about there. All right. This was interesting. Most vehicle buyers want the versatility of omni-channel retail. Now, what is omni-channel retail? Omni-channel retail is buy however you want, wherever you want, right? And this is actually pretty interesting. Check this out. 9% of shoppers intended to buy all in person. So they wanted to do at least some of that process online. 63% said that they would do online and offline, right? Now, this is where things kind of fall apart here. 53% of shoppers still doing everything in person. So they're not figuring out their payment online. They're not getting to fill out their credit application online. They're not adding accessories or products online, right? They're not scheduling their test drive. We're still seeing that all in-store process happening. And only 40% were doing kind of an omni-channel, online and offline. So what this tells us is there's still tons of opportunity for dealerships to meet the needs of these shoppers right here. 28% wanted to do all online, 63% wanted to do both. Yet we're forcing a huge chunk of those people to do it in store. So you may have those tools, but you're not implementing them effectively. Maybe they're not talking to each other, right? You've got a digital retailing tool, but when they get into the store, you're not able to pick up that deal where they left off. You're not, collecting finance applications before that person comes into the store. There's still a big gap, and that means that there's a big opportunity to meet the needs of these shoppers right here. People want to do steps online, but we're missing out on that. And even though customers are happy with the overall process, there's still a chance to sell more cars for more money to happier customers who want to come back and buy from you again, right? It's these numbers where there's opportunity. Okay, let's go a little bit further here. Time saving. Who's been beating this drum for forever now, right? It's been me. I've been saying, hey, save time in the dealership, sell more cars for more money with happier customers, because customers want that process to take 90 minutes or less, right? If you've been around me, you've heard it said before, and I'm going to say it again, right? Time saving is a key digital benefit. If you can get those shoppers be mostly digital, so that's figuring out your payment, filling out a credit application, scheduling a test drive, putting in your trade-in information, and maybe signing up for some F&I products before you come in, you're saving on average 41 minutes per deal. Now, some dealers are like, hey, I want that deal to take a long time. Well, you're wasting time. What about a busy Saturday? You have only so many people who can work deals, right? And that means you can only schedule so many appointments and deliveries. All of a sudden, if you're cutting that sales time down by, a third to half, you're unlocking capacity to sell more cars in a weekend. The way that I like to think about it is, hey, you're a restaurant, you want to make money, you turn tables quickly. So you want to turn those deals over quickly when you get that person into the store. Now, the other thing too is, let's look at that satisfaction score with the dealership process. So those shoppers who are mostly digital, 69% were happy with the overall dealership experience compared to light digital, only 58%. And those numbers grow even more when we look at new shoppers. Almost a 20% difference for new shoppers and about a 8% difference for used. So get people into your digital experience earlier in the process. You're going to save time, unlock capacity, and unlock the satisfaction for those shoppers right there. Okay, let's keep it going here. This is really cool. All right, the opportunity to increase steps completed online, especially in the financing stage. Now, this is a lot of data, but what we're seeing is when you can get somebody to fill out a finance application online before they come into the store and get them approved for a rate, right? Or get them onto their best rate, whatever. The satisfaction with the overall sales process increases by about 20 points. Because what's one of the most time wasting or, time intensive parts of working those deals at the store? It's processing that credit application, getting them a rate, right? If we can get that done before that person comes into the store, it saves them a lot of time and they're happier with that overall process. So, rule number one, every single lead that comes in, you get them a digital retailing link. Get them into your experience before they come into the store, right? Rule number two, emphasize, hey, before you come into the store, you've booked the appointment, right? You confirmed the appointment. You should fill out your finance application before you come in. We'll make sure we get you a great rate, and we're going to save you a lot of time. Because if you can get that person to fill out their finance application, they're going to be way happier, and you're going to save a lot of time. And you can prepare that finance conversation before they're even in the dealership. So you're saving your F&I managers a lot of time and hassle right there. All right. Last but not least, we're going to conclude here, and it comes down to where are people going for their research when they're looking for cars? And it is third-party websites. So your listing sites, right? Subtle pitch for Auto Trader, but here we go. Check it out. 75% of shoppers, right, visit a third-party listing site when they're researching cars. Number two is going to be your dealership site. So these are the two we want to look at. Now, one thing that we're going to keep an eye on is these AI sites, right? ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, what's Meta's thing that they just canceled? Llama, right? They're doing research on their vehicles right here. So right now it's only 12%. I think we're going to see those numbers increase as more people use AI for more things. And these AIs are querying these two sites, right? They're querying your website and they're querying the third-party websites. So we are optimizing our sites to show up here, and we're doing some cool integrations. We got our Auto Trader integration with ChatGPT, so it'll search Auto Trader directly for you and provide you results. But we're going to see a change here, but right now, most people, when they're looking for inventory, they're going to start at that third-party site. So definitely something to keep in mind. All right. Well, that is it, everybody. Thanks again for checking out Droppin Knowledge with Noah today. Hopefully you guys learned something. Stay tuned. We're going to be going over more studies. We're going to be interviewing more people. My goal is to get as many of these episodes out this year, build up the following. And if you have an idea for a video, you want to learn more, whatever, reach out to me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. My email address is noah.lee@coxautoinc.com. And once again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.